Hello guys, welcome to another driving test video. So there are two types of drivers that go for a driving test. A driver that's not ready and a driver that's ready. Now I'll go for that to divide that into two subsections. So the ones that are not ready. You have learner drivers who are not ready because they haven't done enough lesson or enough practice. There are other learner drivers that are not ready just because they have high level of anxiety. Now, those drivers with high level of anxiety are the ones that I really feel for, because you're caught up in this loop and you're not moving forward. You feel like you're not progressing and you don't know what to do. Sometimes it might help to change instructors. It does help. Not necessarily to mean that the instructor is not good enough, but it could be teaching style, it could be learning style. Maybe that too might not match. You never know until you try. Sometimes it could also be that all you need is actually more practice. And then again, it might be that you're just too desperate, that you're putting too much extra pressure on yourself, hence why you're very anxious. So you want to look around you sometimes and figure out, maybe, am I pushing myself too hard? Now, the other thing that you can do is actually practice around the test route. So familiarize yourself with the test center's route, wherever is your test is going to be. And this maybe helping yourself familiarize yourself with the place would help you kind of know what to expect, and it helps you anticipate better, because worst thing that can happen to you is to be anxious and then taking your test in a place that you have no idea of. If this still does not work, then maybe it is time to go and face the demon itself. And your intention here is to go and see what it is and why you are so scared about this test. Don't give yourself another expectation of, oh my god, I have to go and pass it, because then you lose the whole point. We're going to see the test, we're going to face it, sit with the examiner, and understand that they're actually just normal human beings as you. They just want to see how you drive. They just want to see if you can be safe. That is your mission. You want to go and overcome that fear. You want to go and see that there is nothing wrong, there is nothing big, there is nothing so extraordinary about this practical test. And that's your mission. And if you can achieve that, then you can go back better and more confident, because you know what? You know what to expect. So hello guys, welcome to this driving test video again. Now the video you're watching is a test at Hither Driving Test Center on the 26th of October 2023. Now test started at 11:11 a.m. in the morning, and as you already know, it was a fail. This was an anxious learner driver who had done 90 driving lesson hours. So would watch what the mistakes are, and you would see that the mistakes on this test that caused the fail were things that were done out of anxiety. They were very little things, very minor things. And if the driver was relaxed, not anxious, could have been a pass. But do I want this driver to pass though in this situation? Watching and knowing what the case was, I would probably say not, because I do not want people to pass on luck. I want you to be a safe driver on the road, and you would see what I mean. You don't want to pass on luck, trust me, because later on it becomes a problem, not just for you, but for others on the road. So let's watch the video and see what it is. So now they are now setting off on the test, and just as they make their way out of the test center here, notice that the learner is not keeping left enough as she drives out of the test center. Keep in mind that this is a two-way, so keep more to your left as usual. Don't let situations force you to change position when you could have been in that position to start with. Always discipline yourself with your lane positioning. I've had a learner fail at the test center right here because of this. So the examiner had to prompt the learner to move back to the left as they approached the gate. So keep this in mind. So since exiting the test center, everything seemed to be going very well, which is good. So we'll continue and keep watching. Now, one thing that the examiner mentioned was the progress of the learner's driving on the road. Now, you would notice this, that every time the learner moves off after they pull up on the left, it actually takes a while before she actually makes progress to keep the traffic flowing. Now, this happens as well during bends. You know, when you approach the bend, you reduce your speed to give you control as you steer through the bend. But then as she comes off the bend, it takes a little bit more time before the speed picks back up again. Now, this would not be a problem on roads like this, but the problem would be when you get onto main roads where there are more traffic behind you. This starts to show so much that you start to hold traffic back. So keep this in mind when you move off. If it's safe ahead of you, make progress and keep up with traffic, or make progress and keep along so that you're not holding back traffic behind you. And on this road is where the problem started. So the learner has been given instruction to pull up on the right, and this is where they're going to be doing the maneuver. Now, she's responded late to that instruction and then end up going so close to the car in front. Now watch this. So here we now take a dip to the right, and then she starts to pull up. Now watch this. So there you go, too close to this car. If you planned that properly, you wouldn't have to get that close to that car, because there was so much space ahead that she could have pulled up earlier on and then avoid going too close. But that's not a problem anyway. So speed was decent enough not to raise alarm. So now they're going to reverse. So I believe as well that the examiner probably had to just tell her, okay, that's fine, thank you. So if you don't know how to, judge the space when you've got two cars length between you and the car in front, or if you don't have a car in front, then it might be whatever you've used as your reference or as your marker. So she's continued here. We've got more than one car length here, and just about here we've got two. So she has continued. Now if you look on the right hand side of the car, we're now going so close to the pavement. She continues reversing, not, I believe, checking that mirror on the right. So here we are almost hitting the curb, and I believe Savior comes in at that point. Examiner probably just say, okay, thank you, that's fine. So remember, when you're doing these maneuvers, keep an eye on your mirrors. You want to make sure you're not going too close to the curb that you're going to bump into the curb, or you're now starting to reverse into the road. So look around you, keep an eye on your mirrors, not just for pedestrians, but also for the pavement, to know your position from it, and also to make sure that you're aware if you're reversing into the road. Remember to look out for bus signs, check the time, and make sure in this situation here, if you're not given instruction to turn right and the bus lane is not in use, then you should make sure that you're using that bus lane. However, if you've been told to turn right, then of course this is where you plan and position yourself to the right. Then there will be no point to use the bus lane in that case. The examiner complained bitterly about the learner's ability to forward plan, so planning ahead of you. And you would see this as we start to come more into a major side of the test route now. Now, he complained about, being able to stay in the correct lane on time, even following instructions. And I can really understand his frustration, because keep in mind, this is a learner that I've had for 90 hours now. And I understand when examiners complain about planning ahead, and it is something that is so important. You might be able to drive, but you might as well be useless on the road if you can't plan ahead, and eventually you'll be dangerous on the road. So surprisingly, he actually hasn't given any fault for planning. And that's surprising, and that, I would say, is very generous, because in many situations, from what I observed on this video, you would have been given a serious fault for your forward planning or planning ahead. Now, if it was me on this test, I probably, and most likely anyways, would have given a serious fault for forward planning on this test. So yeah, this is a situation where you're lucky, you get a nice examiner who continues to prompt you verbally and not even give you a fault for it. But then in the end, he mentions it, and he did say, although you haven't caused any danger or anything in that, but it was really frustrating. Earlier when I gave you a instruction to go right and turn right here, and then you waited until last minute before you started doing. But so yeah, something like that. It can be very frustrating, and it can be dangerous if you find yourself driving alone now and you're following sat nav and you're doing everything last minute. It can be dangerous. So keep this in mind, and we're going to see it unfold later on in the video. So plan ahead, learn to use your sat nav. If you have the opportunity to take your test at Hither Green at the moment, the road is changing and the speed limits are now being dropped to 20 miles per hour across almost 100% of the route. Apart from, of course, Western Avenue where you've got 40 briefly, and then if you go on the A2 where you've got 50. But if your route doesn't go that way, you will mostly be driving at 20 miles an hour. So please relax, because you now have a good opportunity to not worry too much about your speed. But then on the other hand though, don't get too caught up again that you're now driving at 15, 16 miles, because 20 is already slow for this road. Now if you're now doing 16 or 15 miles an hour, it gets even extra slow. So relax and pass your driving test. So here they're now entering the 30 zone. Now ahead is where problem number 2 started. So the instruction here was actually to continue to turn right at the traffic light, and probably at this point the examiner would have told you that you're turning right at Clifton's roundabout. So which means in that case, if I was the one driving, knowing that information, I would stay on the right lane. Now keep in mind that you can also use the middle lane to turn right, but because you're turning right at Clifton's, you want to be in the right lane and not the middle lane. But Leonard stays on the right lane to start, which is very good, but then straddles lane into the left, as you would see here. That already is a problem. But luckily, there was no one on the left when that happened, because that would have been a fault right there. So now she continues in the left lane. And I believe again, examiner will probably prompt you again to remind you that you're turning right. So watch what happens here as we remain on the left lane. We've got the sign now, and we're now passing the sign, still on the left lane. No one on the right lane up until this van approaching now. And all of that time, it was actually safe to change lane to the right. Now the learner now attempts at this point, as you can see now, she's going to attempt to go into the right lane. So there we go. She slows down. Now trying to come into the right lane. As you can see, the bonnet is tilting over the line, and she realizes, no way. So she changes that decision. But while she's trying to change to the right lane to turn right at the roundabout, she's put the signal on, remember, to turn right. So she changes that decision to turn right. So she goes straight ahead at the roundabout, which again, not a problem. Examiner mentioned that as well. That was the right decision to do. But the problem here was that she left the signal on. And this was why she got the first serious fault. Now, had it been that she had actually relaxed and remembered to turn that signal off, that serious fault would not have happened. So now examiner tells her at this point, so you've taken the wrong lane now. So instruction was now to turn to do a U-turn after this bridge, and again she misses that instructions. She's now on the left lane yet again. It's safe to go into the right lane, but she's still remaining in the left lane. And then again examiner had to prompt her to come to do the U-turn. So watch when she comes into the right. So we're not passing the bridge and we're still on the left lane. And finally she comes into the right lane, but she doesn't enter the right box as soon as she got to this point. See, we get all the way to the middle and then comes now into the right. So not good. After she turns here, as you would see, she fails to make progress again, holding back the BMW behind. So that was not good. What if there was an oncoming car on the dual carriageway and this BMW needed to move away as quick as possible from that space? That could have been a serious situation. So this is where, an ordinary holding back or not making progress fast enough can cause a more serious situation. So now at this point, you can imagine how you must be feeling after missing that turn at the roundabout and not still being able to stay calm, and an examiner having to tell you now the next thing to do, and then you're still nervous and you still didn't get that properly right, so if you don't let that go and forget about it and then think forward now and think of whatever is left to finish the test, you're going to make another mistake, and maybe another serious mistake. And that is what happened next. So just after the roundabout and they got the first serious fault, the second is just about to happen. Now watch what happens here, as the examiner has now instructed to pull up on the left. Okay. Okay, so now she has now pulled up on the left. As she moves off, she does her observation, and there was an oncoming car from the back. Clearly she saw it because the examiner mentioned it, that she did check, you saw the car, but then you still moved off anyways, and then forcing that car to stop as she did that. And that was now how we got the second serious fault. So again, this would have been what? Still worrying about what happened previously, because the examiner mentioned it, because he saw her did the check. She mentioned it herself. I saw the car, but I don't know why I moved off. And this is it. Now, while approaching a traffic light ahead, the learner was given an instruction to turn left. So at this point, they are heading back to the test center. And yet again, the learner was just about to miss that turn. And the examiner obviously at this point wouldn't allow another turn to be missed because they need to get back to the test center. So he comes in verbally to, resolve the situation, which we're going to see just in a bit. Now they are now approaching the traffic light, but as the learner passed the last parked car, instead of coming into the left now, she continues in the right lane. And here you see the examiner's hand pointing and telling her again, you need to turn left. So it's too late now, and here the examiner comes in to help the situation, and you can see the white car on the left. The driver at that point later had to then let them in to the left lane to be able to take that turn. So there you go. That's a conversation going on between the examiner and that driver. Yep. And then the driver then lets them in. There you go. So now they manage to come into the left. Now, in a situation like this, in many cases, I believe you would get a serious fault. I don't know what that would be for. Maybe it's not being able to follow directions or something like that. I think that would make sense. Serious fault for inability to follow directions or something, response to. But you know what I mean. But I mean that would be fair, to be honest. So I would understand. Because yeah, that was just not going to be allowed. Because if she takes that way, it becomes a different route, and then they might get stuck in traffic, and then when examiner gets late for this test, it affects every other test after that. So, and this is morning still. So this was it. So she didn't get a serious fault for any of those verbal assistance, those corrections and all of that, which was quite, generous, very, very kind of the examiner. But remember, every day is not going to be Christmas for everyone. I've had many situations like this where, it was a serious fault given for such errors. So, yeah, try and avoid these things. Plan yourself well ahead. Stay calm. The problem here is that every time the instruction is given, and I'm saying this because I have experienced it for 90 hours. Examiner is just having a little bit of a little fraction of the 90 hours I've had. So this is just about 35 minutes. So I understand what's going on because I know the learner's reaction and response time and all of it. And this is really why I wanted her to come and, get through this fear and just understand that, this test is not as, difficult as you make it seem or as terrible as you fear it to be. So, and this is really so lack of composure, confidence, decisiveness. When you're driving on the road, sometimes you've just got to make a decision and take the action. Go through it. When you start thinking twice, you start hesitating, the whole drive just feels a little bit, sluggish. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel in control. It doesn't feel like you know what you're doing. And that doesn't make a safe driver. You might be able to move a car, you might be able to get from A to B, but the question is, are you actually being safe? Because trust me, in a situations like these, or when you have driving in this way, the safety you think you have is not actually you creating it. It's just because everyone else around you are driving a little bit extra safer to keep situation safe, so trying to look out for you when you're getting too close to their lane, or slowing down so much that they're trying to find a way to get around you, and so on and so forth. So keep this in mind. This is what anxiety does to you. This is what lack of confidence does to anyone on the road. So you want to really try and get yourself through this. Stay calm. It is not difficult. So at this point, they are just about coming into the test center to finish the tests. Now, we already know the situation. This was a fail with two serious fault because of anxiety. Of course, Lena was not ready to pass the test, but at least we have come and we have seen. And believe it or not, the driver after this test was so happy because she has now seen it. And this has really helped a perspective and a perception of the driving test. And we have had a lesson after this test, and the driving on that lesson was very good because the learner is now relaxed after experiencing the test for herself. We have now arranged and made a plan, and we are hoping to find a test for December or January, and we are going back. And this, for me, was the whole purpose of this driving test. And I'm pleased that I did change a perception of the test. And it has helped anxiety so much that it is unbelievable. You know, I don't know, but you should be in the car to feel it. But that was really it. So please, guys, this is the end of the test. I hope you find this very useful. Now, I just like to say again, please, 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 guys, there is a lot of people who watch these videos, and if out of 1,000 views, or even out of say 300 views, maybe in the first few weeks or so, we cannot manage to get 20 likes for this video, then that means you're saying that this video has not been useful for you. So please, guys, all I'm trying to say is if you find these videos useful, the little appreciation I would ask is that you just like the video, please. It would help a lot for the channel, and it would help to get this video to other learners as well. So yep, see you in the next video, and all the best with your driving lessons and your driving test. Stay blessed. Peace.